Hi, I'm Rebecca Moore, and this is Art Watch Radio on WCHE AM 1520 every Wednesday from 1 to 1:30. So happy you could join us today. My guest is artist Vicki Vinton, whose solo exhibition is at Somerville Manning Gallery and opens on October 16th and is on view through November 14th. Hey, Vicki, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Rebecca. Thanks for having me.
Of course, no problem. I'm glad you could be here with us. Before we get into it, I do want to let everyone know that Vicki's show is an in-person exhibition and is on view at the gallery and open to the public. We're taking precautions to make sure everyone can safely enjoy the work. Masks are required, and we are encouraging people to call ahead when possible, just so we can control the amount of people in the gallery at any time. But art galleries are a great place to be right now, since it's an intimate setting with a lot of personal space. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, Vicki, you've created an amazing collection for your upcoming show. Can you tell us a little bit what to expect?
Yes. You can expect a lot of color.
Ooh.
Yeah. Some of my last shows have been a little monochromatic, and this group just exploded with color. The paintings are playful. I feel they're pretty bold. And as usual, there's lots and lots of layering. When I was doing this grouping, I just kind of couldn't stop with certain ones. They did feel like they were getting better and stronger, and the conversation was playful. And I kind of felt like I was doing a bit of a archaeological dig in reverse. So you're seeing the top part, but the more you look, the closer you get. You should see some fun little stories in there.
That's interesting, because so for people who don't know Vicki's work, her paintings are, for the most part, fully abstracted and extremely textural, gestural. And so, Vicki, when you say this kind of reverse archaeology, do you, in a way, is it literal as well, or more just like your idea of it? Like, could I actually see the layers of all your materials in your work?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I like encourage people. I'd like people to get close. Some of the works are big, none of the works are extremely small. But the closer you get, the more puddling of the paint, the more layers that kind of seem to weave in and out. It tells a story. To me, it tells a story. And you kind of wonder, how did that happen? And, oh, look, that's appearing there. And there it is over there. And hopefully that keeps it pretty cohesive, even though there's a lot going on.
And I definitely think that one thing that does pull your work together and kind of has that cohesive nature that you talked about is the texture. The texture in your work is one of my favorite things about your pieces. And they're just, some of them are kind of gritty and, forgive me, but not super pretty, but in a good way. And so can you talk just a little bit about why texture, why texture is so important to you, and kind of how you build that up, and just kind of how you play with that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I think I'm attracted to texture in nature. I can get extremely excited about a beautiful rock or a pile of moss, or just the way like a dapple plays on tree bark. And all these things are textual, and it's the way the light kind of plays on the texture. It gets caught in there, bounces around. So I think it's just kind of what naturally interests me. And so along with the texture, you know, there's applying, and then there's taking away. There's sanding, there's scraping, there's adding of sand, there's adding of plaster, and then the best part is being able to make marks within that. So I think it comes from just what appeals to me, what tickles me, what I think is fun.
What do you mean when you say making marks in that?
A lot of my materials that I start with are plasters or heavy-bodied mediums. And while they're wet or as they tack up, they kind of serve as a surface to dig into, carve into. And so the mark making that happens with whatever tool is at hand, or even a hand, even not necessarily my hand print, but actually putting the plaster on with the hand versus putting it on with a trowel or a palette knife or anything like that. So it's the mark making that and the digging. Now, that's part of the archaeological part, I think.
And I think that really leads to the gestural nature of your work. And, you know, I've been in your studio and you work with the piece actually hanging on the wall. Yes, you have an easel, but like, I feel like you're constantly changing it from easel to wall. Is it like a full body experience for you to paint with these multiple mediums and kind of with your hands and everything that's going on?
Yeah, and I think they almost have to be for me. I work a lot horizontally and vertically. So the way the way your hand acts when you do something vertically as opposed to the way it acts when you do something horizontally, to me, is very different. And there's a different pressure. The way gravity takes everything is different. The pressure you can actually put on the material is different. So if it's not already stapled to the wall and I'm working against a very hard surface, it's cradled and I can take it off the wall, put it on the floor, put it on the table, put it back up on the wall, depending what needs to happen with the material. So that is very full body. It's very active. And I think that activity and energy shows in the work. I mean, sometimes I really wish that, it could be a little bit calmer, but it doesn't really happen that way for me right now.
You wish the work could be a little bit more calmer, or your way of painting?
Yeah, that's a great question, Rebecca. Maybe, if I look to try to give the sense of something to my viewer, sometimes I would like to be able to give them a sense of calm, a sense of peace, a sense of calm. And I think I've seen many paintings in my life that give me that real sense of calm. And I'd like to be able to do that at some point. Right now, I think calm isn't really a word we call the way we're feeling right now, so it comes out of my paintings.
Yeah, even though we kind of all should try to feel a little bit more calm, but you're right. It's not something we're doing right now. And you bring that up of how everybody's feeling at the moment. And, I tend to shy away from quarantine as an artist questions and things like that. But I think that we can't ignore the world that we're in at this moment. And most of this collection, I know that you start paintings and sometimes they take a long time, but for the most part, these were all created during a global pandemic.
Yes.
And so that obviously has to affect the work in some way and how you go about it. And something that I really brought out of all the paintings that I've seen so far is they're still really colorful, and I actually find them quite joyous. And I didn't know if that was a conscious effort for you during this really weird and difficult time.
Yeah, that's another good question. Well, I think that they're colorful and joyful for that very reason. Like I was talking about, trying to evoke an emotion. I don't want to evoke somber and worrisome at this time, and I don't want to be working that way. So when I go into the studio, I'm trying to entertain myself also and serve as, being kind to myself. So the color is bright this time. And I hope that you walk into the room with these paintings and, you smile and you can kind of rest in a little bit of joy. I think we're craving that right now. I know I am. And as this pandemic kind of wore on and Zoom calls became the new wave of communication, I was kind of interested in creating a grid work of paintings, a bunch of paintings about 24 by 24 that reflected the scenes that we were, getting all too familiar with. You see these little boxes of faces, and it just, the couple Zoom calls that I went on, it just was interesting to me how unifying it actually was, while at the same time it seemed to kind of highlight our differences and our individuality. I didn't create the entire grid that I wanted to create, which was like 9 paintings, but there are a couple of these 24 by 24 inches in the show.
So what did you envision, basically, with these 24 by 24 canvases, panels? I know there's only 9 in the show, or there's only a couple in the show, and you wanted 9. What was your overall intention? Did you want to hang them together, or were they individual, or was it kind of interchangeable?
Yeah, it was gonna be set up like a Zoom call. It was like, there's humanity right there. That there's our humanness right there. Sometimes it was raw. People weren't getting dressed up to get on a Zoom call. And, you got little pieces you could see behind, people. You could see their home, their surroundings, their dogs, their kids, their interruptions. It was raw at the very beginning. And it struck me that it was very human. So, the different works, the different colors, the different shapes in an abstract way was interesting to me.
It's so interesting that you use that word raw, because I would almost use that as an adjective for some of your paintings. And so it's, some more than others, but there's, when you've used kind of this rusty tonality in the past, I kind of got that feeling from them. So for you to kind of describe your earlier Zoom interactions of that, it kind of puts the puzzle pieces together for me. And I think that's a really interesting correlation.
Yeah. I think my work does look and feel raw, and that's on purpose. It's not, it's not supposed to be, I don't know, it's an ongoing process. And so I think the paintings are ongoing pieces, too. They really, they don't end. They're not finished until they, actually have to go into a frame and into a gallery. Or, so they're morphing.
And side note, if anyone is interested in seeing how Vicki morphs her paintings, there's some really great time-lapse videos on some Real Manning's Instagram, and I believe Vicki's Instagram as well, of several time-lapse videos of her painting this large-scale abstract orange painting, which is very fun to watch. I was excited that you did that, Vicki.
Yeah. That was a moment.
Yeah, so I recommend everyone check that out for sure. So we talked a little bit about your mediums and your techniques and things, but are you experimenting with any new mediums or new techniques in this series that you haven't before?
I did one piece that is a collage, and it's a collage piece of small shapes of raw canvas that have been plastered and painted and drawn on. And it was something that I wanted to explore a little bit more, but I'm going to do that down the road. But I like this little piece, and it was a part of a piece for the Zoom call series. So it was just a very, very different than what I usually do. As once again, back to the Zoom thing, it was just a possibility of another being. So that's the only very different thing that I did for this series. Yeah.
I see a whole Zoom show in the future, maybe now.
Me too.
So Definitely, definitely. Well, Vicki, you hold on a second because we do have to take a break. But when we come back, we'll have more with artist Vicki Vinton.
Thanks, Rebecca.
All right. Welcome back to Art Watch Radio, WCHE AM 1520. This is Rebecca Moore, director of Somerville Manning Gallery, and my guest today is the painter and sculptor Vicki Vinton, whose solo exhibition at the gallery opens October 16th and runs through November 14th. So I'd like to kind of switch gears this second half, Vicki, and talk about that in addition to your gestural abstract paintings, you recently started working in sculpture. What made you want to experiment in 3 dimensions?
Well, I've always been interested in sculpture, and I learned how to weld from Stan Smokler. And my pieces that I welded followed my abstract art path, and they were fluid, and I, loved the rusting of it and the natural way the metal worked. And when I had the idea for Stand with Presence, and it took a strong hold on me, and it was evident that she needed to be precise, her message needed to be clear, not abstract. And for this, I was going to need a fabricator, somebody that could put that message out strong, wouldn't be confusing. It wouldn't be lyrical. It would be simple and bold. So,
can you, real quick, before you go further, can you physically describe what your major 6-foot piece, Stand with Presence, looks like?
Yeah. It's pretty simple. She takes on the kind of hands on hips pose with her feet firmly on the ground. It's a bit of the superhero pose. It's a strength pose. She's bright red and very geometrical. Very geometric. Mm-hmm. She has a round head, a triangle kind of shaped cape body, and triangular arms and rectangular, long, steady legs. She's about 6 foot tall and is 2-dimensional with a 4-inch thickness. She weighs about 240 pounds and stands alone and really looks great out in the landscape.
Mm. What made you want to tackle something like that? And like you said, it's a kind of a different direction than the more natural, rustic feel of the metal work you did before.
Yeah.
She's a little more polished.
Exactly. That's a good word. Thank you. She's polished. She needed that, and she needed to be red. So I kind of started to work backwards with that. When I decided she kind of needed to happen and was coaxed along by a bunch of people, I drew her out. I drew her out life size. I worked on the shapes. And I thought the idea of collaborating with some other artisans would be great. And so I found a local fabricator who had never done any artwork. They do a lot of things for the military and farm equipment. And he was totally game. And just to kind of go through the process with somebody that wasn't a visual artist was terrific. And to have all these big, strong welding guys, making this feminine shape, it was really a delightful experience. Mm. So I think it was the collaboration that was intriguing.
Mm. So she is this 6-foot figure, but I I know that you are working on a companion piece at the moment, which will, I guess, technically be unveiled during your show at the gallery. What can you tell us about that piece?
Okay. Well, this piece is Presence with her arms straight up in the air, reaching for the sky. And her name is Joy. And I think along with Presence, that is a very powerful pose. I mean, if you feel yourself throwing your hands up in the air, you know, it's pretty much of a joyful feeling. And you know, sometimes it's totally unsolicited and you're just happy and you throw your hands up in the air. And the power I see in that is that so much can be done in a positive way if we come at it from a joyous frame of mind. So it's not simply the type of joy that maybe, you know, a touchdown type of joy or a, you know, a party type of joy, but it's really trying to hold joy, you know, feel joy in us during these times especially, so that we can make decisions from that frame.
That's really great. I'm so excited to see it. Do you, in the long run, this is the second fabricated piece you've done, do you intend to kind of continue this series of these bold, empowered figures?
Well, Rebecca, you're just going to have to wait and see, I think.
Oh, you tease me.
Yeah.
So cool.
But Joy seemed like Presence kind of needed to happen, and I think Joy needed to happen too. And you know, it's just the way we're feeling these days. So you can't really, instead
of maybe forcing it.
Yeah, and so we'll see what happens next. But I think the sisterhood could be pretty strong in the future.
I really agree. Stand with Presence is installed in Philadelphia at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah, she's at a sculpture. It's called Sculpture in the Glen. It's in Gladwin, PA, right outside of the city. And, she's out in nature along with maybe 30 or 40 other sculptures from around the Philadelphia area.
That's great. That's really great. It's funny, we keep referring to Stand with Presence as a she, but you know,
I know.
I like to personify our work. She has kind of taken on this role of her own, even outside of the sculpture itself. So you also have a tabletop version, which is, I believe, 2 feet tall. You have smaller, I think, what are they, 6-inch tall, smaller ones. And then you have these pins that have kind of exploded all over and have traveled the world and have a hashtag on Instagram to see everywhere she's been. Did you ever expect that it would take off like this?
Well, I didn't, but the more you talk, you know, the more response you get from people. I mean, some people see it and they get it right away and they're like, wow, you know, got it. And she just needed to be a little mascot for people. And not everybody can have an 8-foot sculpture in their house or in their car or on their desk. And I just have to tell you, she's been a big inspiration for me. I have a couple of the littler ones around the house, and I had the big one here at our farm. And, you know, I would drive out in the morning and go, okay, you know, here we go today. Let's get it done. And you can do this. You know, you got this. So just being to have her as a mascot for, you know, by your desk, I think is fun and important.
That's really, really wonderful. Even to hear that she continues to still even be a motivational force for you, because I feel she is for me as well. I mean, I have my Stand with Presence pin that I either wear on my lapel or my purse every day. And so what has been like the most exciting thing you've seen by following like the Instagram hashtag? Have you seen her in a place where you're like, oh my God, that's so cool?
Yeah. Actually, I saw her. There is another street artist in Philadelphia that takes plastic, and they're generally like monochromatic. So she'll take a bunch of red pieces of plastic, or pieces of things she's picked up, detritus, whatever, and she makes these beautiful sculptures out of them and weaves them into one another. And I saw a little present that somebody had put like on one of her street sculptures, and I was like, wow, so fantastic. And she's been to Canada. You took her on a great trip. Last
all around
year,
Europe, yeah.
Europe, and she did some more street art there, I believe.
Mm-hmm. She did. She got I believe, stickered in Budapest, and yeah.
Exactly. So she just crops up, and I love it, you know.
That's so amazing. Yeah, it really is. And do you kind of think that you refer to it as kind of like this sisterhood series, which I absolutely love? Do you consider that series of these fabricated sculptures to be connected to your other work in any way, or do you kind of consider them to be a completely separate entity?
That's a great question. The kind of the philosophy behind the presences and the joys, I hope, is in my painting also. But this is different. I think I'd have to say it's a separate thing, and it's separate for, I think one big reason is the fact that I've had to incorporate a lot of other people to get the presences done and out there in the world. And the fact that it's more of a collaboration than the painting is actually a very nice vacation from the painting, you know, to have people really have to stand up and do their part in it. So it's not as solitary. So in that way, I think it's very, and it's been a different way of thinking that I enjoy.
Yeah, you're kind of dealing with different parts of the logistical aspects and different parts of your brain. In terms of the sculpture and the painting and kind of your work in general, it's ever changing and ever evolving. Where do you kind of see it going from here?
My painting. Or
do you kind of like where you are right now?
Well, it's kind of a tough question, and the question is kind of the answer for me. Is that my work is just is always experimental. Anyway, so for my work is just going to continue to be experimental. It's going to continue to, I'm going to continue to use my hands, whatever it takes to make it happen. I don't think it's going to change in that way. And I'm still having a lot of fun doing what I'm doing, and I still have a lot of questions about how to achieve what I'm trying to achieve. So my work is experimental already.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's really great. Yeah. Well, I can't wait to see the show and what you come up with in the future and everything. And we do have to wrap up. Vicki, I want to thank you so much for being with us today. I think this was a really great insight into what we can expect.
Thanks, Rebecca. You've been great. Really appreciate it.
So just to remind everybody, Vicki Vinton's solo exhibition at Somerville Manning Gallery runs October 16th through November 14th. It is an in-person exhibition and is on view in the gallery and open to the public. Masks are required, and we are encouraging people to call ahead when possible. But we look forward to seeing you all in the gallery. Thanks for joining us today on Art Watch Radio. This is Rebecca Moore, and be sure to tune in next Wednesday from 1 to 1:30 for a new episode. Take care, everyone.